this morning is on a current funding situation in St Christopher's Services, which is a special school in Longford, built, funded by the people of Longford over the last 40 years and close to the heart of all of us there. However, currently we have a situation where there is a significant deficit running currently at €250,000 a month, which will reduce to €140,000 when the 8% increase, which was agreed for Section 39 organisations prior to Christmas, comes into play. But as I say, it's a Section 39 organisation. A number of years back, there would have been significant staff leaving to go to work in the HSE due to the wage differences. And to my understanding, and over the last number of months, there's been a number of issues with delays in pay, staff contacting my office, etc. It's come to fore in the last number of weeks where there was issues actually with pension contributions hadn't been forwarded to various companies, etc. And I've met with management, I spoke with some people in the board of directors, etc. And we really are at a crisis point with regard to the organisation. As I say, we're running at, when the wage increase comes in place, €140,000 a month, which is nearly €1.7 million for the end of the year. And what happened back in 2022, and the reality is, and the facts are there, government TDs in our county made promises of additional funding to cover wage increases. And the Board of Directors made a decision to increase the wages of staff because of the high levels that were leaving the organisation, on the basis of being told that funding would be made available to cover them. And that was made by the local TD in Longford. And we've come now to a situation in early 2024 where, as I say, over the last number of months, there's been wages, staff hadn't been paid on time, and now we come to a situation over the last number of weeks where we find these details now in place, that there's a significant, massive financial shortage. The HSE has had to come in on board and front load money from the end of the year to get over this hump. But the reality is this situation is going to continue unless there's a change in the funding model for St Christopher's as a Section 39 organisation, or as took over by the HSE. But this was caused by false truths being told to the staff, to the board, that this money was in place, and now we find out it's not. And I don't think that's acceptable. As I say, this St Christopher's is close to the heart of every single person in Longford for the last nearly 50 years. Fundraised in every single corner of our community, and that has stopped because of numerous issues like this. So I am looking to get the facts, number one, because the staff are entitled to the facts. The staff weren't told the facts. They had to find out themselves that these issues were arisen, had come up without being told in advance. So I need to know what the facts are to me as a public representative, representing the people of Longford, because they're not being told the facts by another public representative in the county. They're being told lies that money was being put in place, and that is not the case. I apologise, ill truths.
Thank you.
And I think the facts need to be put out there, and we need to make sure that this organisation that looks after the vulnerable in our community is properly funded into the future, and that it's put on a firm basis, and that we don't have a situation where a voluntary board of directors make a decision to pay increased wages, and rightly so, to a significant number of the staff, rightly so, to keep them on board, to look after our vulnerable, but then not to be left in a situation where now there's a significant deficit within the organisation based on that decision, on the information that were given at the time, which has turned out to be incorrect information. So I'm calling on government to immediately put in place the funding on a permanent basis to cover these increased wages, to make sure we can keep the staff within St Christopher's to look after the vulnerable in our community in Longford. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and to thank Senator Carrigy for raising an important issue for discussion in the Chamber today. St Christopher's Services is a disability services provider founded in 1964 by parents and friends of disabled people in Longford. It is an independent legal entity governed by a board of directors. The organisation is funded by the Health Service Executive Midlands Louth Meath Community Healthcare Organisation under Section 39 of the Health Act, with minor funding from other sources. St Christopher's currently provides day services, residential services, respite services in a number of locations across Longford. Services are provided on an individualised need and agreed in partnership with the HSE, service users, their families and other voluntary providers to enable service users to reach their full potential. The organisation is an important provider of services, and the HSE is consistently assured of the quality of the services provided by the organisation. Notwithstanding recent year-on-year increases in funding, it is acknowledged that the HSE and the disability service provider it funds are experiencing financial pressures. Demographic changes, increased complexity in service user need, regulatory compliance and recruitment challenges have all served to increase demand on available resources. With significant assistance from the HSE and the implementation of a cost management programme, St Christopher's had achieved a break-even financial position over recent years with a small deficit in 2022. However, the HSE did not have advanced warning of the scale of the financial difficulties which emerged at St Christopher's in late 2023. This included a number of revenue notices of attachment served on the HSE in relation to St Christopher's. The HSE has assisted St Christopher's to deal with these notices of attachments through a cash acceleration process. The cumulative cash advances as of the 15th of March 2024 are in the region of €3.5 million. This is a significant commitment of public funds by the HSE. As a result, the CHO finance team undertook a due diligence process with the organisation, with a draft report issued to the management of St Christopher's. A response to this report is awaited. The HSE separately commissioned EY to review the due diligence process and the last number of years' income and expenditure at St Christopher's. The review identified weaknesses in internal financial controls and information deficits, with the gap between operational costs and available income due almost exclusively to the organisation's decision to increase its pay costs beyond available funding. HSE cash advances have enabled the service to cover weekly and monthly payroll, to cover commitments to revenue and to pay into pension schemes for employees. In addition, funding has been advanced to cover trade creditors and ensure that supply chain for service provision is maintained. On the basis of current knowledge, the anticipated cash deficit for 2024 is expected to be €2.4 million. This will result in a cumulative deficit of €4.4 million at the end of 2024, with a funding level of approximately €14 million being provided by the HSE this year. So the next steps, most importantly, I know that Minister O'Gorman and Ministers Rabbitte want to take this opportunity to reassure the many people who use these services and their families that their services will be protected and maintained. The HSE Chief Officer of CHO 8 is working intensively with the organisation to develop a pathway to financial stability. This includes exploring options for additional support for the board to enhance governance and oversight processes and mechanisms to further audit of the financial systems and governance. The Chief Officer remains The Chief Officer remains in close contact with senior members of St Christopher's Board in order to provide support and maintain communication channels during this challenging period. The Chief Officer will be meeting with the Board again in the coming days to clearly articulate the next steps required and to request defined cash flow information for the next 6 to 8 weeks to ensure that the HSE can respond to any changing needs accordingly. This proactive financial and practical support from the HSE will enable St Christopher's to continue its valuable service provision in the immediate term, while a strategy is developed to address the core sustainability issues. It's a key objective of government to ensure that appropriate funding is available to give stability to service providers for delivery of quality services for people with disabilities.
Senator Carrigy, nominated one.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for the commitment of the government, to ensure that there is going to be appropriate funding. But within the reply there, it spoke about the defined cash flow information for the next 6 to 8 weeks to ensure that the HSE can respond. We need to know for the next number of years. And key to it, we're looking at a deficit of 4.4 million in an organisation at the end of the year, a deficit of more than I thought, of 2.4 million for the current year alone. And that's not sustainable for an organisation going into the future. Basically going from week to week. I I see where, as I say, the deficits have been caused exclusively by a decision made by the organisation. That's what's in the reply here. But the information that was given to the people making that decision was that funding would be made available permanently going into the future, and that funding would be put in place to pay those wages. And them commitments were made from members of the government and government parties, and it wasn't me. And I think that's not acceptable. These people have made a decision that have given their time voluntary to look after the most vulnerable in our community, made a decision based on that, and have been left now with this situation of a huge deficit and uncertainty for both staff, service users and their families. And that's not acceptable. We need a commitment and a guarantee going into the future. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank Senator Carrigy for his contributions on this matter, and the points you've made will be absolutely conveyed to the Minister, to both Ministers and to the HSE. The Government has demonstrated its continuing commitment to people with disabilities, with a record €2.9 billion being provided in 2024. This includes significant additional funding to help increase service capacity to deliver more for people with disabilities across the country. It is, however, recognised that several organisations are in a weakened financial state. The financial challenges facing the voluntary sector are highly complex, arising from both historical issues around funding arrangements as well as emerging challenges due to changing profile of user need, higher safety and quality standards and general demographic pressures. The Government is working to progressively address these challenges. The Disability Capacity Review was an important step in mapping out and acknowledging the levels of unmet need in the sector. The Action Plan for Disability Services sets out...
You can conclude, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
The Action Plan for Disability Services sets out our ambition for reform and expansion of disability services over the next 3 years, and this includes a significant policy service transformation initiatives to ensure innovative person-centred solutions to meet these systemic challenges. So, just in final conclusion, in the meantime, cash advances have been made to cover the financial commitments, and funding has been advanced to cover outstanding debts to ensure the service provision is maintained at St Christopher's.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Senator